Cantor. How are you? It's so nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
So I thought I would start just for people who haven't yet met you, to share a little bit about your amazing background and how you came to Portland in the first place.
Yeah, sure. Well, first, thank you for having me as part of these talks and for thinking of me and including me among, um, clergy and other members of the community here in Portland. I am very new to Maine. My family and I moved to Maine last year in June, so June of 2019. And that is my husband Alex, myself, and I have Solomon, who is almost 5, and Emilia, who is 18 months. I am originally from Argentina. I grew up in Buenos Aires, and I did my studies in Buenos Aires, and I was part of synagogue life from a young age, but not in an obvious, clear path. My family was really not religious at all. Um, and I always say it was kind of out of nowhere that my sister wanted to have a bat mitzvah. And, my older sister and I was the younger sister, and I wanted to do the same thing but really for me, I fell in love with music. And at such a young age, I think for me, my musical awakening and my my Jewish awakening kind of happened at the same time. I find music so intrinsically part of my Jewish identity and how I go about expressing myself Jewishly. Um, I moved to New York City in 2007. I became assistant cantor at Temple Israel of New York City, which is a Reform congregation on the Upper East Side. And I was there for about 5, 6 years, and then I met my husband there, and he wanted to continue his graduate studies, so we moved to Arizona for 2 years. I was there as well, being part of the community, and then when that was done, I took a position in Denver, Colorado, where I was for the past 5 years prior to coming to Maine. I was the senior cantor at Temple Sinai, which is a large and over 1,000 family units congregation in Denver. A wonderful place. I feel like I'm one of those fortunate people that I left a really great city, Denver, and the community is great, to move to another really great place. So I have no complaints. Some might be curious, at least, that I stepped down from such a big congregation and role, and I came to Maine to be closer to family. My husband has family in the area, and I have a sister, my only sister, who lives in Montreal. And life had happened, kind of very quickly for me in the past 5 years, with the birth of my children and also the passing of my own mother. And I was kind of on this autopilot um, path, and it was just it felt like a good time for me to take a break and come and figure out my place and the ways in which I can be a part of this community.
And you've done so many great things, which we'll touch on. For people who are less familiar, our congregations don't have the infrastructure for cantors right now locally. So some people may not be familiar with the role of the cantor, how it relates to the role of the rabbi, what happens in a congregation where you have both of those positions.
Often you'll find that congregations have a rabbi and a cantor, and that the role of the cantor is anything and everything that has to do with uh, worship and spirituality through music in the life of a congregation. Over the years, the role of the cantor has certainly broadened, and it has become a lot more teaching classes about music in Judaism, but perhaps other topics as well. Often cantors have also a big role in bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies, as well as the process of preparing bar and bat mitzvah students. Also, very often cantors either conduct or direct the choirs, if a congregation has an adult choir or a children's choir. I see them as true partners, rabbis and cantors. I think it's still to this day a balance that is a work in progress, and I've had I'm very grateful and lucky that I had experiences where I was given opportunities to do things that as a cantor perhaps would be slightly more on the rabbinic bucket.
I know that you've done, again, a lot of different types of outreach and engagement with our community. You've been singing sometimes at services. You came to the J to do our Shabbat with our kids several times, which is so nice. And then last year you were doing gatherings in person with people to do music together and song leading with Moshe House and others. Obviously, a lot of that has shifted to be virtual. And you were also doing some outreach with PJ Library, meeting with families and getting to know people as an ambassador through that program too. As things have shifted since March, and I know there are unique challenges of presenting song and especially getting people to be able to sing together through this virtual medium. So how has that shift looked for you? What kinds of things have you been doing?
The short answer is I don't know. I am trying different things. In the world of cantors, we often talk about, whether a piece is presentational or is participatory, or, if it's a frontal piece of music that we are engaging with the congregation, that we kind of are deliberately wanting them to have a moment to listen, or whether we're looking for a moment to participate, to have them join in, and all these dynamics. So now it's just very, very different. Even though I've been doing some full worship experiences, I've kind of shifted my mindset from worship experience where the way we know it, where there are all these pieces and all this order, to prayer moments where there is just a prayer. Perhaps there is just a prayer that can be transformed into a moment. When I think about a moment, I think about, kind of, yes, a rhythm, a song, a melody. I think about the content. I think about what's happening in my body. And so some of those things I have been trying to use a little more. So whether it is using really our breathing and kind of these guided breathing opportunities and meditation, so that there is at least an awareness that we are all kind of doing the same thing, which is, I think, what we want to know, that we are all trying to do the same thing, even though internally, we are all experiencing what we are experiencing. There is no transferring that, but we want to know that we are together.
Well, I think having participated in the healing service a couple of weeks ago, it makes so much sense to me to hear more of an explication of how you created the type of space that you did, because it is really powerful to sign on to something that usually it feels kind of two-dimensional on the Zoom, and then really to be able to have a sensory experience, a really communal, moving experience. I was so impressed and so moved that that was an option, that you were able to create that space. So I think what you're doing is working really well. It's quite lovely. I know you talked about maybe singing a song today. Would you like to do that now?
Yeah. Okay. So the words are very simple, and you'll be able to get them as I sing because they are in English. So yay, good for you. And it is a song that Eliana Lights wrote. She's a Jewish singer songwriter.
I rise in the presence of the infinite. I rise one with all the earth. I rise, breathing and blessings. I rise one with all the earth. I rise. presence of the infinite I rise. One with all the earth I rise. Breathing and blessings I rise. One with all the earth I rise. I rise. I rise. One with all the earth I rise. In the presence of the infinite I rise. With all the earth I rise. Breathing and blessings I rise. One with all the earth I rise.
Like with anything that is prayer music, it can be written for one thing and then it can be transformative in so many other ways. And so when I shared these melodies some months ago, I was thinking about rising up to the challenges and the occasions that life is inviting us to rise up to what's right, to rise up to speak your mind, to rise up to, and and I was thinking about all that in the context of the events of Black Lives Matter and so much more that is happening. And then today, on this slightly gray day, after having gone through high holidays and just knowing that people were still, I think many of us are still experiencing emotions in such a intense and polarizing way. I mean, we're all having some really, really good days, and then we're having some really, really, really difficult days. I think about I Rise as it's just great that you got out of bed today.
Mhm.
Good for you that you're standing. You are making a meal for your family. You got a shower in there. You were able to give a hug or place a call. You know, you're up. You're up and going. One more day, and I think that that's true about this song, and that's true about prayer. So often, I think this is what I love about music in prayer is that I feel like it unlocks various um, attributes, and they're all there. And not that one is right and the other one is wrong. It's simply that a melody might help us unlock this other aspect that we just didn't necessarily think about or experience.
I mean, it is healing, this kind of emotional support of these songs at a time when you're having a hard time moving forward or you have questions that are unanswerable for a period. I think there's something too so sort of democratic about a lot of the songs that you're teaching our community that it feels like they're accessible for any singer. They're songs that you could sing at bedtime. They're songs that you could sing through the day while you're doing other things. It's not so ornate that it's only available for people who have specialized training. Um, I also think though that sometimes we get used to the songs that we know and the melodies that we know. And I am sure as a cantor, you hear a lot of feedback from people saying, well, I like to sing this one way and learning a different way is hard sometimes. How do you suggest people approach that question of balancing like very, very comfortable music with maybe opening up to some new things?
Cantor Ellen Dreskin, who is a cantor in the Reform movement and a teacher and a mentor and just such an amazing person, tells his experience. She was teaching, she was leading services, and at the end of the service, somebody came up, as it would be very frequent after services. People come up to the bima and they would tell you about the music, and this congregant said, I loved services today and your voice and this music and everything, but I must tell you, Cantor, that Vashambru, I hated it. And she responded, I am sorry, that didn't work for you. But if you had looked at the person next to you, he, she, they were dancing and just expressing and feeling the melody. A couple of things about this anecdote, whether it's real or not. I think it might have been real. I mean, I never had that happening to me, but I can see that happening. I can see people thinking that, even if they're not coming to me to say it. Music in worship has always been so controversial, and I would say up until recently, maybe it was the controversial thing that was happening on the Bima. And now I would say there are other things that have taken the spotlight. But why I love the choir, I hate the choir. I love the instruments, I hate the instruments. That singer is too operatic. That singer is too folky. I can't relate to a female voice. I can't relate to a male voice. I mean, there's just so much about it, and it kind of isn't a right wrong answer. All I would say is, I think that it's both things need to live together. I think that people have these melodies that they grew up with and they love, and the melody is not just a melody. The melody is a moment. The melody takes them back to an experience. People have their right to have that and to treasure that, and we need to give that to them every so often. We need to make sure, we know that they love that too, and maybe a different melody will open up a different opportunity to maybe even create a new experience, or to have a new moment that they can hold on to. I wish I could be better at expressing this to people, that my hope is that music can be that to prayer, that can allow us to look at those same words over and over again, and have and just see the power of various things that are part of a prayer that sometimes can only be unlocked by different tunes or different music, and actually have a musical representation of what I just said.
Oh, great.
That
Great.
I just thought of.
Perfect.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, awesome.
So there is the prayer Micha Mocha, which we sing, and it takes us back to the moment of when we left Egypt and we were free. It's our reminder of the cost of freedom and the challenges and that people go through to accomplish that, and then ultimately such a celebratory moment when the people of Israel get to the other side, and Miriam picks up her tambourine, and there's this outpouring of dancing and singing and praising that is in the form of song. And so if I sing right, that is, yay, we did it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I imagine also that experience. I imagine just the sense of awe of that moment, not the awe of an experience that is happy and exciting only, but something that is beyond what I could have ever imagined. Something that was life of death pending. There are so many other things that happened in that moment. So if I sing,
Who is like you? Who is like you? Who is like you? Adonai.
said something completely different. It's not more or less true. It's just different. So that's my long answer to your question. I hope people will embrace those melodies that they love, that bring a memory to their minds, that they'll pass those along to their children, so that there is that continuity of memory making and music.
It's amazing how that unlocks the layers of the story too, right? So it's the same story, but the way that you emotionally connect with it is so different, and the aspects of it that you appreciate is so different depending on the song. It's incredible. I think that level of awareness of how our worship impacts what we're feeling in terms of sensory experience, I certainly have never thought through that at all. I don't think that's something people often take the time to unpack. I think we're familiar with Debbie Friedman and the sort of democratizing of some music and bringing more English into worship in some cases. But it seems like this is a whole other level of real appreciation for the functionality of music in our worship process and the sensory expression that it creates.
It's what we cantors do. It's the call and the art that we involved in, and I would never ask a congregant to appreciate a melody that I presented because I like it so much. It has nothing to do with it. We kind of try to choose the template of how we're framing the experience. What are the highlights that we want to put to create that spiritual path, to open the doors for those reflections and connections to happen. And then people make their own connections, and they love it, and they sometimes don't, and that's okay. That's when we then we always have another Shabbat, another hug, another opportunity to make it different.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much, Cantor. You have, as I mentioned, several things that you've been working on through the high holidays. I know that you were doing some work with the Center for Small Town Jewish Life, which was amazing. And do you have other things planned this fall, or are you still seeing what arises?
Exactly. I am certainly looking at more ways to be involved and to be a part of the community and things that I want to offer. In addition, I've been doing some work with the World Union for Progressive Judaism, which is the international arm of the Union for the Reform Movement here in the States, but it's a global organization.
Well, we are so blessed to have you here, and we'll certainly continue to follow whatever you're doing and try to amplify so that as many people as possible can be aware of your amazing gifts and all that you bring. I know a lot of people are still struggling and do feel challenged by this time. And I've been asking people what you find comfort in, where you turn. Are there particular artists or places people can find music that they may not yet know about?
Wow, that's a great question. So, I mean, number one, I would say make for people who have their top list of artists, to really follow them on social media, because people are putting out a lot of content and and just beauty in the world, which I think beauty in the form of whatever that is it just brings so much comfort. I think that at least the Center for Small Town Jewish Life has a lot of has offered, or I think they have a lot of they highlight a lot of the work of the Hadar Institute, and they are an amazing source. Yeah, I mean, I have some, as always, I have people that I love, but I don't think that that's what this is about. There are people that I follow and that I really love, but I think that there are a lot of opportunities to engage now virtually. It's a moment also of extreme creativity, which I'm not surprised. These are times when often creativity also is kind of explodes. So there is a lot of beauty that is being put out there. So yeah, I think people should really find what they are being drawn to and follow those.
Kendra, thank you so much. Whenever I engage with you, I always feel so rejuvenated and kind of held. It's amazing the space that you create. And again, I think you do it virtually and in person equally well. So thank you so much for your time and for being here. And hopefully over the course of the year, you'll come back and we can talk about other things that are happening as we reopen and start to do more in person maybe next summer. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.